forget as we put away Christmas that the Christmas celebration continues and goes on. I want you this morning, as we get started, to think of, if you will, one thing. One thing specifically to you that you would like to be different at the end of 2013. In a year from now. Now, there may be many things, and I want you to think of just one specific thing in your mind that you want different. And I know that every one of us will have something different that we want changed or different in 2013. And maybe it's a habit that you want to break, or a habit that you need to pick up, a healthy habit. Maybe it's financial. Maybe there's a financial investment or transaction or buying a new house. Maybe it's relational. Maybe there's a relationship that you want to fix or repair or make stronger. Or maybe there's one that you need to sever altogether. And whatever it is, it's that one thing. It could be good or bad. It doesn't have to be something negative in your life. That if you concentrate on this one thing, that you will be in a lot better place next year at this time than you are right now. And I don't know, again, what your one thing is. It could be a bad habit you need to break, or a good one that you need to go get into, a relationship, whatever. And if you're still having trouble figuring out what that one thing is, it's that one thing, if you could push a magic button right now, all will be right in your life. It's that thing you need to do. It's that thing that you ought to do. It's that thing that you want to do that emotionally charges you deep down inside. And it's something that's kind of been hanging over you for some time now. This is your one thing. And maybe you have 10 things right now, but for the next few minutes, I would ask you, if you would, to please just focus and think of that one thing. While that is still in your mind, one of the drawbacks of doing what I do for a living, there's not many, but one of the drawbacks is that I don't get to go to church weekly. I don't get to sit where you're sitting and listen to ministers preach and listen to the gospel. It's just part of the way it is, or listen to God's message. But however, in social media, I listen to other ministers on a weekly basis as I'm running or working out or around the office. Most of the time I had headphones on, and sometimes, most of the time I'm listening to music, but sometimes I'm listening to other ministers. And my college roommate is an awesome guy, and we lived together and just grew up together kind of in a place. But he's a very nice guy, but he never was into church in college or growing up. He never was one of those people that attended church very often, and he wasn't critical about the church. It wasn't his thing. And he began to tell me how him and his family now are going to a church. There is a point to this. I'm going to get there real quick. That him and his family began. And I thought, if anybody can get this guy to church, he kept talking about how great he loved his minister, how great his messages were. I was like, if he can get Z into church, I got to listen to this cat, because he's got to be good. Because I asked him for years, and he never would do. So I listened to 11 weeks. It's 11 weeks. His minister did a 11-week sermon series on the character or the book of Nehemiah. Now, 11 sermons, 11 weeks, an hour long on the book of Nehemiah. And as I was listening to these sermons, there was one piece of scripture that just kind of, if you ever listen to a sermon or a piece of scripture, it just kind of jumps out and grabs you and hangs on to you. And that is the one we're going to look at today. But before we do that, I'm going to give you, if you can hang on for a second, as you turn to the book of Nehemiah, I'm going to begin in the 6th chapter, the first verse. But while you're turning there, I want to give you some background, if I can, on the book of Nehemiah, because it's important. Now here you go. Here is 11 weeks, 11 hours worth of sermons. You ready? In 90 seconds. In 44 BC, there was a king of Persia named Artaxerxes, and Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king. Now, a cupbearer is kind of like a wine taster, okay? They would taste the wine before it was given to the king to ensure that no one had poisoned it. Okay, so Nehemiah was not just an employee. He was the king's friend. He was the king's official. He was a trustworthy slave. Now, Nehemiah was a Jew. Are y'all holding on to this? Now, Nehemiah was a Jew. 100 years later, before Nehemiah was even So basically everything in the city was destroyed. And it was just kind of a mess. So Nehemiah had this passion in his heart to return to Jerusalem and help out his people, if you will. He'd never been there, but he wanted to return to help out his Jewish people. So he goes to the king and he says, look, things are really bad with my people. Okay? And can I just please have a sabbatical, some time off, so I can go there and maybe give them a little organization, some leadership, some direction, some encouragement to help my people out. Now, Nehemiah was a slave. Slaves don't get time off or vacation or sabbatical time. But our ex-Aries says, you know what? I'll do one better. I will make you the governor of all Judea. Basically, he says, I will make you the mayor of Jerusalem. And he's like, man, Arxerxes, that is awesome. He said, I will give you everything you need for your people to help out. I will give you money. I will give you more slaves to go with you. I will give you building supplies. Anything you need, I will give you. But I've got one condition. Nehemiah says, what's that one condition? He said, one condition is when you're done, you have to come back to me. You have to come back and still be my cupbearer. So boom. So Nehemiah gets building materials, money, and workers, and he heads to Jerusalem. Now, what you need to understand is in the city of Jerusalem, they've been living for 100 years in chaos without a wall. Now, what is a wall? It had been 100 years. The people that were living in Jerusalem had never known a life of a city that had a wall. A wall means self-esteem as a nation. A wall means security. A wall means a sense of hope and peace. You see, without walls, or the way to monitor who comes in and out of your city, you are vulnerable. Bandits would come in and rob and steal and rape and murder your family. And they would literally come in at night, take whatever they wanted, and they would leave. So you were without walls or gates. You had no security. You had no safety. You had no chance of prosperity. Because if you got something and it got above the status you were living in, someone would come in at night and steal it. So Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem. I'm going over my 90 seconds, I know. He arrives in Jerusalem. He spends a day walking around looking at everything in this horrible mess that the city's in. He looks in the eyes of the people and sees in them how hurting they are and how everything's a mess. And he comes to the conclusion that if he doesn't do anything else in his time in Jerusalem, that he will get a wall built. Okay? The wall was Nehemiah's one thing. And it would be a huge project, a huge undertaking, but it began to make progress. Now, as Nehemiah is building the wall and making progress, you can see how this wall would not set well with the surrounding warlords and bandits of the region. Because they were used to coming in at night and taking anything they wanted. The wall would cut off their economy as well. So the leader of this group of warlords was a guy, as I said, with the children, named Sanballat. And Sanballat sends spies into the city, and he starts rumors about Nehemiah and Nehemiah's intentions of helping the people. And then he sent his army to go and attack those working on the wall. And he causes a lot of problems, but the wall keeps getting higher and higher and higher until they get to the point where all the walls around the city are finished, are high, are strong. It says there's not a gap or a weak point in them. And so then they begin to work on the gates. And Sanballat realizes his strategy is not working. He figured if he could kill Nehemiah, then the people would be discouraged. They wouldn't want to finish the wall. They wouldn't have any leadership. And he could go back and tear down the wall and get everything he wanted. And here is where we pick up the story. You can exhale now. Whew, we're here. We're finally here. So, Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 1. When the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it. Through up to that time, I had not set the doors in the gates. Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message. Come, let us meet together in one of the villages out on the plains of Ono. Sanballat sends a letter to Nehemiah and says, hey, bud, let's do lunch. Let's get together. Come on out. come out of the city to the plain of Oh No, and let's talk. And Nehemiah knows that Sanballat wants to kill him, so he sends him this reply back. And Nehemiah's reply back is the verse that jumped out and grabbed me like a bear trap. And it's what I want you to remember and think about your one thing when we read this next verse. Verse 3. So I sent a message to them with this reply. I'm carrying on a great project and cannot come down. Nehemiah says, I'm doing great work. I'm doing this project. I can't come down. Say that with me, if you will. I'm doing a great work. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Cannot come down. Let's try that again. I am doing a great work. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. And I believe that there's something in your life that you need to climb up on, a wall, if you will, to make your life complete. And here's the rest that Nehemiah says, the rest of that verse. Nehemiah says, why should I stop, the rest of verse 3, why should I stop this great work and come down? Nehemiah says, how spending time with you will it benefit the great work that I'm doing on this wall? Verse 4. He says, 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the exact same answer. 4 times Sanballat says, hey, come meet me. 4 times Nehemiah's response was the same. Each time it was the same. You see, if Nehemiah would have came off that wall, he would have been killed. There are things in our life that if we do not focus on them, if we do not gain control of them, if we do not put our work and energy in them, there are things in our life that have the potential to ruin us or ruin our lives as well. There are things relational that if you don't stop tending to or building on, they have the potential to kill your family, to kill your marriage, to kill your relationship with your children and your grandchildren. Hey, look, if you have little children, listen, go in there at night when they're asleep and put your hand on their back. And for a moment, just rub their back. And I want you to say out loud, I'm doing a great work here and I cannot come down. There are a lot of things that you could be involved in. There are a lot of missions you could be in. There are a million things that you could be doing or need to be doing or ought to be doing. But this is the one thing God has called me to do, and I am not coming down. If you have teenagers, go into their rooms, look at their huge bodies that have grown up overnight, and look at them in a peaceful moment and say, hey, take those earplugs out. You know what? I'm doing a great work here, and I am not coming down. And then, take a look at the picture you have of your wife and your family in your office, or in your man cave, or wherever you're at. And say, look, I'm doing a great work here. And sure, there are more hours I can work. Sure, there are trips I can make. Sure, there are more committee meetings I can be in. Sure, there is a lot more hunting and fishing I can do. But I am doing a great work here, and I cannot come down. And wives, take a look at your husbands. And sure, he's a lot of work. And sure, he may need my help. And yes, sure, he's lost, or whatever you ladies say when you look at us. I don't know what it is, or what you think about us. But you know there's a specific vital role that you play in the life of your family. Look at your family and say, you know what? My husbands and my kids still may have a long way to go, but I am doing a great work here. I cannot come down. Most of you, hopefully, at this point know exactly where your wall is. And if you know where your wall is, you know where the breach or gap in your wall is also. You know what sets you up for disaster and what breeds success. This is my wall, and I will not come down. They may be cute. That may be a attractive to me. This may gain my attention, but this is my wall, and I will not come down. This may seem inviting to you, but I'm not coming down. This may seem like an awesome opportunity to better myself or go on to something bigger, but I am not coming down. I know what God has called me to do, and I know what is in my heart and in my conscience, and I am not coming down. Some of you may have a habit that you need to break. Again, I don't know, maybe you drink too much, maybe you eat too much, maybe you smoke too much, maybe you spend too much time on the computer or the internet. I don't know. If you are not sure, you want me to tell you how you can tell right away if you eat too much, drink too much, smoke too much, Facebook too much, or have a bad habit? I can tell you right now, if you want. If someone in your life close to you that loves you, that cares for you, has said to you, you know what, you blame too much, then you are doing it too much. It's simple as that. And maybe this is your year to get rid of that habit or addiction or deep down, you know what they are saying is true. That's your wall. That this is your year that you say, I am not going to be controlled by a habit or addiction. That this is your wall, that you decide that a healthy you is your wall. Your health is your great work. That you're going to be there for your kids and your grandkids and your grandkids. So you need to start taking care of your health better. That's your wall. And you've got to say, this is my wall, this is my work, I am not coming down. And then it's financial. And you say, look, I'm not going to live in great debt. I'm going to sell something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to get out of this. Maybe it's in your relationships. And you say, look, I'm not going to go another year just pretending anymore. You know, I can't pretend anymore. And if that's you in your relationship for your sake, your kids' sake, and I know it's embarrassing, and I know it's awkward to just sit down, especially with the person you love, and you say, look, this is our great work. This marriage that God brought us together into, this is our great work. We're not coming down till we fix this. And sure, it's hard to start talking. Sure, it's hard to start listening to each other instead of talking at each other. This is your goal. And maybe it's your relationship with Jesus Christ. I mean, God is calling you to do something. And you say, look, I don't care what other people say. I mean, I don't care if we don't have money for it. I don't care. I don't care. I'll get the money somewhere. I know that people will try to distract me from what God is calling me to do. I know that. But you know what? God has placed this in my heart. And this is my wall, and I am not coming down until it is finished. When you leave here this morning, I need you to realize that when we all walk out of here this morning, when we all walk out of these walls this morning in a few minutes, I need you to realize that nothing outside has changed. The only thing that can change is you on the inside. You see, your mind and your attitude, and I pray that will be changed, and that you'll walk out here and that you will begin to transform your life and to focus on your walk. But I need you to be fully aware that when you walk out this door, you're not going to have $1 million more in your bank account. I wish you were. When you walk out of here, you're not going to have more time in the day to do the things that you want to do. When you walk out of here today, you will not have less stress in your life. You will not have any less obligations that you have or responsibilities that you have right now. But know that here, right now, you can turn the corner and you have made up your mind that this is my great life. And I still don't know what your one thing is. But I do know do know what hangs in the balance. I do know what hangs in the balance of you hanging on to that wall. See, you and I have no idea what the outcome will be of you hanging on to that wall. You have no idea what will come about. But what will come about, and however it comes to fruition in your life, it will come out as the great work God will do. That I do know. And my prayer for you is that you walk out these doors today and you will do it. You will hang on to that wall. Nothing will distract you. And when people keep trying to distract you, when they start gossiping about you, when they start talking about you, when they start trying to get you to do something that you know is pulling you away, when they start to question your new priorities, when they start to whisper about you in your